I'm going to jump right in with a question for you guys today. Thinking about all the friendships that you have now or maybe you've had over time, do you have a friend that when you first met them, when you first got to know them, you actually couldn't stand the person? Maybe someone that you thought was an enemy to begin with, but now you're good friends with. For me, growing up in the youth ministry that I went to as a young kid, there was a couple of guys in the youth ministry that created their own little group, and over time it became, well, like a gang within the youth ministry. And I remember one of the days they were picking on a friend of mine, and it was very childlike bullying. They had pushed him to the ground. They were jumping on his belly and different things like that. And for me, the biggest thing I didn't like was, of course, they weren't doing it to me. They were doing it to my friend. But I didn't like the fact that they were doing it to him. And then on top of that, it was like 3 against 1. That's not fair. So I went over and I just told them, hey, guys, stop. It's 3 against 1 or whatever. And they kept on going back and forth with me and threatening me. And so finally, I just went over and shoved one of the guys off. Next thing you know, I was pinned to the ground by one of these guys. He was a bigger, tougher football player, and I was and have always been kind of scrawny little Josh. And so he had me pinned to the ground, and he's like, dude, just stay out of this. And me and him were going back and forth. And my brother Joel, see, here's the thing about siblings. We will fight each other, we'll attack each other as kids and everything like that. But you mess with your family, and you mess with someone in my family, and the family's going to come and protect them. That's how it is. And my brother Joel sees this guy pinning me down, and even though we might have had just gotten into a fight earlier that day, he runs over, flies through the air, and elbow drops this guy on his back. He gets ticked off. He jumps up, and he starts to run after my brother Joel. Next thing you know, I'm trying to hold him back, which to no success am I really doing that. And it ends with both of us being held back by our friends and us kind of screaming at each other. And then someone else jumps in and they're saying stuff. And it was one of the few times in Josh's life, I know you might not be able to see this or even realize it, but Josh snaps a little bit. And I start yelling at the person, probably cussed them out a little bit. And then as someone else came up and they started choking me from behind, they were putting me in a headlock and all that kind of stuff. And as I said, Josh is getting closer and closer to snapping. And finally, they're compressing my airway, and I'm like, with the hoarseness of voice, I'm saying, stop. And the person behind me is just laughing. Something finally snapped. And I went behind to the groin and then came up into the face. Now, what does that have to do with friendships? Well, it's funny because it's one of the few times that Josh snapped, and in the end, I was being held back from some of these guys that were bigger than me. But one of those, the one that at the very least, I guess, tried to stop me from getting involved and all that kind of stuff, one of the guys that pinned me to the ground was someone for the next several months. I was like, I can't stand this person. I don't like this person. And this person ended up becoming a good friend of mine over time as I found out more about the person, and they changed and I changed. All of that to say, it took me finding out more to the story and more to the person and who they were to understand who they really were. And over time, we developed a great friendship. But there was more to the person. We're in this new series called More to the Story, and there are different things that you kind of expect to talk about in church. You expect me to talk about the Bible. You expect me to talk about Jesus, prayer, loving, forgiving others. Those are things that you expect to find in church. But granted, you don't expect me to always talk about, not only just because of who I am, but also you don't expect, because it's a church thing, for me to talk about fashion. I'm not going to talk about concerts. I'm not going to talk about celebrity trends for the most part. Those are things you don't expect to talk about in church. You don't expect me to talk about Justin Bieber. It's just not a church topic that we talk about. Well, today, we're talking about Justin Bieber. No, just kidding. But this series that we're in, we're hitting some of the harder, more awkward topics. The things that sometimes you're like, should a church really be talking about it? But as I said last week, it's topics that you guys are getting from every other source, younger and younger. So maybe you should be getting the Christian point of view, the Christian perspective, and maybe the church should be talking about it. Today's topic we see everywhere. Everywhere. It is always just a click or a tap away. Maybe you guys have seen something like this on Netflix or on HBO Max or on an online ad while you're waiting for something to download or while you're opening up a page or while you're playing a game. The truth is, today's topic, it surrounds us all the time. So here we go. We're diving into porn. As I said last week, these issues can be a little bit embarrassing. And as I say what we're talking about today, even as I said it, maybe some of you guys are like, click off the video, or maybe you guys are like, oh, why am I here today? Why are we talking about this? And maybe some of you guys or girls are kind of doing the whole, yeah, porn. Who deals with that, huh? Not this person. So why are we going to talk about it in church? Here's the thing. Before it was a big deal. Growing up, porn was a big deal. Now it is beyond that. See, pornography doesn't just affect people. Our culture isn't just affected by it nowadays. The fact is, because of our cell phones and how easy the internet is and how easily accessible everything is, pornography influences us and our culture. It doesn't just affect us. It is, in essence, it's everywhere. I mean, it's in apps, it's in ads, it's in TV shows, it's in movies. Porn is pretty much everywhere that we look. It is using the sexual gratification to entice your visual and your mental aspects into looking, wanting, and desiring some of this stuff. It's everywhere. In fact, the reason that it's everywhere, and to show you how prevalent it is one of the largest industries in the world. In 2019 because that was before COVID, and so we're looking at kind of a normal year. The NHL had a revenue of about $5 billion. That's a lot of money. Billion. The NBA had $9 billion. Again, a lot of money. MLB had $11 billion. The NFL made $15 billion. CBS, the network, made $10 billion. NBC Universal, so all of that, made a total of $34 billion. That is a lot of money. It's about $84 billion that all of those combined made in 2019. To give you an idea, looking at Disney, the media conglomerate that Disney is, to break it down here, Disney owns Fox, Disney owns Marvel, Disney owns, Disney, ABC, ESPN, Lucasfilm. They own 50% of A&E, 50% of History Channel, 50% of Lifetime. They own Pixar, the Jim Henson Productions. They are invested into GoPro. They own cruise lines and resorts and theme parks and licensing like you wouldn't believe. They also own international TV stations, and as a whole in 2019 made $69.7 billion. Ka-ching, that's a lot of money. So all those other things combined, $84 billion. Disney on its own and the media conglomerate that it is, $69.7 billion. Do you know how much porn made worldwide? The pornography industry made $97 billion. If you took all of those other things besides Disney and combined them, it still would be about, more than 10 billion short of what pornography industry made that year. All of that to say, pornography is a huge industry that is raking in money. But here's the thing, they're raking in money off of us. I know we might say, and because we're surrounded by it and because it's flaunted in front of us, we might think that it's such an innocent thing. Well, it's okay to watch, it's okay to look at. I just want to see what it's like. And we'll have all these excuses. And if you look at how much money it's raking in, believe me, this stuff is grabbing in lots and lots of people. But the fact is that pornography is designed to hook you. It's not just there to entice you. There to hook into you and make it so hard to get out. 64% of teenagers view porn by choice weekly. Now, I'm not going to do the math for you guys, but kind of the reason why we're talking about it is the truth is there's a lot of people even here in this room or watching this video that struggle with it. You're not alone. This isn't to make you feel shame. This is to show you what this industry, what these things are doing to us and how they are trying to rule and destroy us. But you're not on your own. Do you know the average age of exposure to pornography? 11. And yes, it has to do with how easily accessible it is. But years ago, I did a study when I was in college and I was taking a counseling course and we were talking about how you deal with different things. And my thing I chose was on pornography. And at that time, years and years ago, some of the biggest keywords that brought up on search engines pornography and some of the top sites were things dealing with little kids like Pokemon and Batman. Some of those things are what led to it. Do you know with pornography is actually compared to cocaine in the way that our brain responds as we take that hit of cocaine or pornography. Because of what happens is it releases the dopamine in the same way that cocaine would. So in essence, when we are viewing pornography, we are taking a drug. It is having some of the same reactions in our brain, and what's happening oftentimes, the more and more that we view it, is it's actually rewriting our brains. Especially the reward center of the brain. And I know for some of you guys, you're like, huh? Okay. I didn't come here for a science or anatomy lesson or anything like that. I don't care about the brain. Just do the church stuff. Here's where it matters. See, as it rewires the reward center of your brain, lots of exposure to pornography can lead to stuff like the feeling of like numbness in life. It can lead to depression. It can lead to feeling empty. It can lead us to start looking at the people that we're viewing and the opposite sex that we're viewing, or whatever sex that we're viewing, and seeing them as more pieces of meat and objects than actual people. We consume it like it's food, and over time we just get so used to it that we treat it like it's food. It's just a commodity and not a person. Like any drug, over time, as that high wears away, we start searching for deeper and harder stuff to be able to trigger that same response. As I said, this isn't to shame any of you. It's to talk about it, to bring it into the light, to make us realize that this is something that a lot of people across the world, but especially teenagers, are dealing with. And this goes across the board. It's not just males, it's females as well. There is a big pornography culture that is trying to destroy us. Even being transparent, one of the reasons why in college I decided to do this is because as a young teenager, I struggled with it. It is just a click away, and for many years I struggled with it, and it was an addiction that no matter how many times I'm like, I'm not going to view this stuff anymore, I'm not going to view this, I'm not going to look at it or whatever, then you would hit the 1 week, the 2 week mark, and then you would stumble and click, you're back at a site. And you'd feel like you failed. You feel like you were an awful person. You feel like, how could I do this? But that is the effect of pornography, because once it gets in, once it sinks in, it has you. And it is the hardest thing to break. For some, that's like, I've never looked at it. I've never desired it. Good. Stay away. But maybe for some of you guys that are struggling with it, today I wanted to talk to you about this. Because as I said, God designed sex and relationships as a great thing. He designed it. He designed it for us to be an amazing thing in the correct context, and that correct context is marriage. But over time, as a culture and people, we have taken this amazing thing that God has designed and we have twisted it to whatever we want. And pornography twists it even more. See, God knows that when we view pornography, it leads to us disvaluing his people, the ones that he created. God knows that pornography is bad for us. The truth is that porn is like a trap. I have a huge rat trap. Very terrified of this thing. Don't want to break my wrist or whatever. But you use this to catch a rat. It's heavy duty. It'll hurt a lot if my hand goes in there. So what do you bait a trap with to get the rat or the mouse? If you went with the cartoons, maybe cheese. I actually found that peanut butter. I've heard peanut butter is even better for getting the mouse. You don't lay just like a block of poison and say, okay, hopefully it'll eat the poison off of here. I mean, maybe if the mouse is stupid or the rat's stupid. But as a whole, you have to bait the trap with something that'll get its attention, something that'll pull it in. Something that's sweet. And see what happens is over time, after you're baited with that sweetness, the trap springs into effect. In the same way, pornography, especially in this culture, is being pawned off as this thing that is, well, it's an experience and it's innocent and it's understanding things and it's all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, it is a trap that is enticing you with all of the best things and trying to give you the best quotes and trying to use some of our biggest weaknesses against us. But the goal of it isn't to inform or to help. The goal of it, when we fall into it, is to catch us in that trap. The Bible says this in Proverbs 14:15b. The prudent give thoughts to their steps. It's a very simple verse. It's a verse that we can use a lot throughout our life. But especially when it comes to dealing with pornography and what we view and what we allow into us. See, in essence, it's saying a person should be smart in where they step. Speaking of mouse traps, my wife has a really funny story about when she was younger, how her brothers were in their bunk bed and they kept on calling the dad into the bedroom in the middle of the night. And he would stumble in the darkness and walk in and he'd be like, what? And they're like, oh, nothing. And then he would leave, and then maybe 10 minutes later they'd call again and he'd stumble into the room in the darkness and he'd be like, what? And they're like, oh, never mind. And this happened several times. And finally, one of the times he gets a little aggravated, he walks in, he turns on the light, and he sees that they have set mouse traps all over the room. Each time they were hoping, I know it's kind of awful, they were hoping he would step in and step on the trap, but it just so happened that in the dark, in his stumbling, he missed every single trap each and every time. He needed to be careful of where he stepped because it was so easy to set off one of those traps. In the same way, we have to be wise as Christians and as people on what we're viewing, what we're accessing. There are so many things that want to control us, and we need to be wise on what we are allowing access to ourselves, to our mind, to our bodies, because there are so many things that want to control us. In fact, taking that verse in Proverbs, Paul goes a step farther in Ephesians when he says this, Ephesians 5:15. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. Basically, guys, your life matters, and how you live it matters. So we need to be careful on what choices we are making, what we are consuming, what we are looking at, what we are living our lives for. That doesn't mean that we have to walk on eggshells all throughout life and say, am I going to make a mistake here? Am I going to make a mistake here? Am I going to make... But no, it means that we need to be careful on what we are allowing access to in our heart, in our mind, in our soul. What we're allowing to be part of our lifestyle. Especially when it's stuff that'll lead to messing with our head. Now that goes for people in general, but especially if you are a Christ follower, if you have a relationship with God, whether you're young or old, there are things out there that the enemy uses to try to trap us, to try to destroy us, or at least to make us ineffective. And as a Christian, we have to be careful on what we're allowing into our heads. Because so many things in this life aim to take God's place as that center thing. To turn our focus away from God and onto everything else. But one of the most destructive things that tries to do this is pornography. So the big question is, how do we deal with this? Maybe you're struggling with it. Maybe you've never accessed it. How do we deal with this? Two quick things. The first thing is refuse to be fooled. I mean, it's really simple. When you look at things, when there's something enticing, when an ad pops up, what is this ad trying to sell me? I mean, ask yourself that, because the truth is advertisements are there for a reason. They're there to get you to buy, to pay money. These advertisers are paying money for your access, to access you. So what are they trying to sell me? Even if it seems innocent or even if it's something pornographic, what are they trying to sell me? Because the truth is they want something out of me. Another thing to ask yourself so that you're not fooled is this really good for me? I know we talked about this last week when it came to in relationships, but that is a good thing to ask across the board. Is this really something I need? Is this really going to be good for me? Is what I'm about to view, what I'm about to consume, is this going to be beneficial to Josh? Because the truth is there are so many fake and manipulative things out there. So we need to be wise and smart and careful in what we're accessing, what we're allowing into our life, and what we consume. So don't be fooled. Don't look at the trap and be like, oh, but it's lined with Twix, and I love Twix. So I think if I just stick my hand in there, I can... No, don't be fooled, because it's still a trap. Don't be someone that finds yourself in the trap. Or if you are in the trap, you need to start making those decisions now, asking yourself on a daily basis, is this really good for me? Do I need to access this? And then 2, refuse to participate. Before you even step foot online, before you're even alone, you need to start making decisions. When I'm tempted, what am I going to do? When I'm tempted, what are going to be my ways out? If I need to do this project and I'm online and things start coming my way, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this temptation? Figure it out before you ever get there. For some of us, it's choosing to be like, hey, I need to put up some blocker or something. Some way so that I can't access it. Or for some of us, our phones are our biggest weaknesses. And maybe it means at night charging your phone in a central living area, not in your bedroom by yourself. Find someone else that can help you through this. I know the idea of this is super embarrassing. It can be. sharing this deep, dark secret with someone else. But the truth is, for me, part of me being able to conquer it was through God, and God providing people around me that I could lean on, that I could go to, that I could share when I was struggling, when I was tempted, when I was all that kind of stuff. Yes, that initial conversation was scary and awkward, but to know that I had people that had my back when I needed help helped me through this. Don't feel embarrassed. You have others to help you. I mean, honestly, I'm a person that's standing up here and speaking and everything like that, but can I tell you, I had people like my youth pastor and other friends that poured into me, that were there for me, that had conversations with me, that I could share my heart with, that I could share my failures with, my mistakes with, and they helped me through, not to judge me or attack me, but to help me on this walk. In the same way, your small group leaders are here. I am here not to judge or attack you, but man, those moments where I spent time with my youth pastor changed me and were groundbreaking moments in my life. I want to be there for you guys. If you guys need anything, if you guys need help, if you guys need strength or prayer or support or advice, I want to be there for you guys. I don't want to just be this person standing up here. In truth, I love being with you guys and talking with you guys and having you guys opening up and be able to share in your life. See, porn and talking about this, it's not about shaming you. If you're struggling with this, I'm not saying you're awful or you're a horrible person, because as I said, I struggled with it. Instead, I'm saying that you've been lied to. You've been told it was this great thing, or you've been tempted with some of your greatest weaknesses to get you to fall into a trap, to get you to incapacitate you, to make you unusable as a Christian. But porn doesn't need to rule you anymore. It doesn't need to control you anymore. Through God, His help, and others, you can find the freedom from this trap. So again, don't hesitate to reach out and talk to me or others. If you are struggling, if you need help, we are here for you. We want to pray with you and help walk this out with you. Would you pray with me? Father God, I thank you for each and every student within the sound of my voice, and I thank you for what you're doing in their life and how much you care and love them. And the truth is this topic is a heavy topic. This topic is an awkward topic, but it's something that so many people struggle with. And so I pray that you would help, if anyone is struggling with this, that they would choose to see the trap for what it is and start making choices that would lead them away from it. And they would reach out to others that they know they can trust, people that they confide in, and will have their best interest at heart to see a breaking to this trap, Father. You've come to set us free, and I pray that we would live freely in you. In your name, amen. Well, as always, guys, whether I see you online or in person, can't wait to see you guys soon. Miss you.